Welcome to the Total Soccer Show and our latest look at the summer transfer window, which closes up this Monday. Today, we're discussing a player who wants away from Man United in a story we're calling Cobby Beef. I'm calling it that anyway. We're asking if Chelsea are firmly in for Fermin Lopez, and we'll see if Tottenham will sail the high seas for Morgan Rogers. Yar, I'm very proud of Cobby Beef there. My name's Ryan Bailey. Joining me today, your friend of mine, Taylor Rockwell. Hello, Taylor.
Hello, Ryan. I thought you were going a different direction with a player desperate to leave Manchester United in a story we're calling a weekday, because that feels like a pretty common thing these days, I gotta say.
There's a little bit of discussion to be had around that particular club, I would say.
Oh, is there? Did something happen?
Well, a guy sat and didn't watch some penalties and played with some magnets. We can talk about that.
I can't tell if that's, sad or hilarious or both, but man, that image of Bruno for people who haven't seen it, Ruben Amorim for people who haven't seen it, of him, adjusting his tactics board, it really does come across as it was supposed to go this way. If only they had gone according to the pegs on my metal board. But it didn't, alas for him.
He's like Insane Clown Posse. He doesn't understand the magnets. That's what the issue is here, Taylor. Joe Lowry's here. Hello, Joe.
That's a solid joke, Ryan.
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry
Thank you.
that no one else is into Insane Clowns.
It's so good, Ryan, that you give that to Taylor, because to be honest, I have no clue what you just said. I would have nothing to give back to you, so I'm just going to say thank you for introducing me second and not first and not talking to me about Insane Clowns.
I had you down as a juggalo. That's a shame, Joe. Never mind. Yeah.
Yes, and that was very funny.
Graham Ruthven, hello.
Hello, Ryan Bailey. I enjoyed your Kobe Mainoo joke. That's nominative determinism in action, isn't it? Mainoo, Man U. It's like Arsene Wenger. That's the only reason he got the Arsenal job, I think, because Arse is in his name, I guess, and it's in Arsenal. That's how it worked for Kobe Mainoo, right?
Yes.
Thanks. Yes, and?
Yes, and that was very good. Congratulations.
Hey.
We got lots to talk about today, including but not limited to Man United, of course. The transfer window, just a few days left. Graham, are we expecting any big last-minute deals, any surprises we think are on the horizon? Perhaps we should touch on this in the episode, but anything to preview?
In my personal life or in the transfer market?
I'd say specifically in the transfer market over the coming days.
Got my eyes on a sofa.
Graham, anything from the doc that we're going to do in detail in 5 minutes that you want to just start talking about now?
Just want me to do it all now?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to give a little tease that dear listener, keep on listening, that's fine. If not, I'll just carry on. It's up to you.
Just carry on, or we can just do it in the Patreon.
Very good. Patreon.com/Total Soccer Show is where you get our bonus content, by the way. Bonus episodes, bonus transfer talk, bonus video, and access to our Discord server. All the cool kids are hanging out there. It is the best way to support the Total Soccer Show. Patreon.com/Total Soccer Show. A please and a thank you. All right, Man United chat. Let's get down to it. Cobby Mainoo. Want-away player, maybe one of a few, Taylor. Before we get to Cobby Mainoo specifically, we have to have a little discussion about Wednesday night's Carabao Cup game against Grimsby, a fourth-tier team who knocked out Manchester United on penalties. Was it 12-11 in the end? The penalty went on forever. It seemed like the wettest, most miserable night in the world, certainly for Ruben Amorim, who, as we mentioned, spent a lot of the time moving magnets around on the board with a frown on his face. And also the bad optics, I'll say, of not watching the penalties, not standing up with the rest of your coaching team. I didn't love that. It seems like, Taylor, the body language isn't quite there with Amorim, and he might be in a bit of trouble. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm really surprised, because I thought at least some of the narrative around Manchester United and the frustration with Amorim was sort of a media construction. It's an obvious thing to go after. It's an obvious thing to criticize and poke fun at a bit. But after this game and hit some of his post-match comments, it does seem like things are not going well, to the point where it does seem like he is going to leave, which feels very insane to say this early into the season, with how much money they spent to bring him in, with how much money they have spent to back him. But he has plenty of comments after the match, which we can get into in detail. But it feels for all the world like he is basically saying this team has quit on him. The players weren't up for it. And when you're talking about a team that doesn't have any of the bomb squad in it, that didn't start Cobby Mainoo, who also seems pretty frustrated with the way things have gone, it's a team that has a lot of the summer signings in it. It's a team that has a lot of players who have fought their way back into a place under Amorim. And so it feels for all the world like a team that, if they have quit on him, are really sending a message that he is not the guy for them, which, again, feels very strange to be in a position after they've spent so much money and put so much time into backing him and hoping this will work.
Yeah, I mean, we'll come on to the Kobe Mainoo stuff, but I think this is actually valuable context for that story, because watching that game last night, it felt like the beginning of the end for Ruben Amorim as Manchester United manager. Not just because of the result and the fact that they lost to a League Two side, although that's part of it, but because they deserved to lose to a League Two side. Man United were second best in that game. They were actually fortunate to get to a shootout, because Grimsby had a third goal disallowed that should have stood in the game. And had it gone 3-0, I think everyone watching that would have thought, yep, that's about right, because Grimsby outworked them. Man United looked lethargic, lacking in any kind of intensity. Grimsby outplayed them as well. They had a clear plan of how they wanted to create chances. They attacked open space well. There were periods of the game, this was the most stark thing, there were periods of the game where Grimsby just were able to put their foot in the ball and control the match in midfield in a way that Manchester United can't. So it was just complete humiliation for Manchester United. And then you factor in, as you say, Taylor, some of Amorim's comments afterwards, his demeanour during and after the game, when it seems like he's completely lost for any sort of explanation. He's still talking about players not having the desire and all these sort of base level things that really should be there by now. And then you factor in the stories about Kobe Mainoo, and it really feels like there's been a shift where fans, and surely Manchester United as well, the decision makers at Manchester United, are thinking, is Ruben Amorim worth all of this? Are we really going to sell the family silver to accommodate a guy who it looks like is probably not going to be here in a few weeks' time or a couple of months' time? And it's flatlined so quickly from that optimism of the first half against Arsenal on the opening day of the season. And I think that might seem ridiculous. We're 3 games into the season, but I do think that reaction is somewhat vindicated, because we were talking about this before we started recording, Taylor. Amorim got something that no Manchester United manager post-Ferguson has ever got. He got 2/3 of a season to work things out, to put in place the groundwork. He got patience. Man United finished 15th last season and he kept his job, which is kind of unprecedented. And when that happens, you need to show dramatic improvement as soon as the following season starts. I don't think anyone's expecting Manchester United to come out the gates this season and everyone to go, wow, that's a title-winning team. But you need to show that your process is working. And we still haven't seen that. And last night was the starkest illustration of that so far.
Yep. And I don't know if that means that Amorim is the problem. I don't think it does mean that. I think it means there are even greater problems than maybe we already understood. But as a Manchester United supporter, I have no idea what this team does next. I don't know how they get better, because I thought the Ten Hag appointment made sense. You bring in somebody with an overarching philosophy, an overarching style of play, but that can be sort of adaptable based on the needs, and that doesn't really work even with kind of a more stable front office structure, or at least the appearance of a more stable front office structure. So then you bring in Amorim, who again has a philosophy and an identity, a pretty clear one at that. He seems like he's kind of a no-nonsense guy. He's trying to clear out the players that don't seem like they want to be there anymore, that are on excessively high wages, and it hasn't gone well again. And as we've already talked about, you're seeing kind of immediate responses under different managers with new clubs. Thomas Frank, the most notable and recent. And so by contrast, for there to still be but he doesn't quite have the right midfielder to play a system that I personally think kind of is the more stable. You go to a back 3, you kind of solidify things. It feels like what managers do when they need to kind of close up shop, and then you can develop an attack from there. It doesn't feel like they've stabilized defensively or gotten better in the attack or really gotten better in the midfield. So at this point, it doesn't seem like the situation is improving, but I don't know if it improves sacking Amorim. I don't know how it improves short of the Glazers selling.
And Taylor, that rigidity is the thing that I misjudged with Ruben Amorim, because I was very high on him coming into Manchester United. We saw how successful he was at Sporting, not just in the Portuguese league, but I remember that game Sporting played against Man City in the Champions League last season. It seems longer ago than last season, but it was last season, and they demolished Man City, and I was hugely impressed with what he'd built there. I misjudged how rigid he would be in this 3-4-3 system, and I don't like it at all, because a manager who, I posted about this last night, a manager who believes a formation or a fixed shape is key to their core principles, I have questions about that manager. I have questions about their core principles. And I look at someone like Xabi Alonso, who used the 3-4-3 at Leverkusen over the last couple of seasons. He's gone into Real Madrid, and things aren't going great for Real Madrid. We didn't really talk about them on the weekend review, but even though they beat Oviedo 3-0, it wasn't a great performance. I watched that one live. But Xabi Alonso is trying things with back 4s, with back 3s. He's dropping, he dropped Alexander-Arnold from right back for that game because he wanted a bit more mobility going forward. It looks like already he's going through the process of working out what he's got within his squad. Whereas Ruben Amorim's coming into this team and said it's 3-4-3 or die, and at the moment it looks like Manchester United very much are dying right now.
Yeah, and one final note on this. I did not enjoy, but did appreciate, some comments online from Liverpool supporters, I think, pointing out that when Amorim was up for the Liverpool job, there is reporting that they passed him over because of that rigidity and the feeling that he wasn't going to be adaptable. He wasn't going to kind of adjust his style to the personalities and the talent Liverpool had, and so they looked elsewhere. And now maybe that is truly the case, because you can see some of those issues very much at the forefront in this performance. Certainly other issues as well. I would love to say that we're not going to talk about Manchester United again, because it doesn't feel like there's a reason to, but it does seem like if and when he leaves, they will appoint somebody else, and that is always maybe a thing to talk about. But I think I was optimistic that you clear out some of the players that don't want to be there, you send a message, you get buy-in, you have players that seem like they want to be there, you have some smart signings. Maybe this team hits the ground running and does look more cohesive. And when we're talking optics and just kind of the appearance of things, we've talked about Amorim a little bit. I don't think it's a great look that Benjamin Šeško is the last person to take a penalty before the goalkeeper. When your new star signing comes in, it doesn't really want to take a shot on frame. Makes me wonder about how sharp he's going to look. He also has a pretty big miss in this one, and the narrative on him seems to have already swung to, oh no, here we go again, at a time when they are quietly but loudly pushing Rasmus Højlund out the door. It doesn't seem like the situation is much more stable than it was this time last year.
Yeah, I definitely share your concern, Taylor. I don't know how this improves. I don't know how another new manager or another bunch of signings improve, because it will still be a mishmash of philosophy. I've got an analogy of a tent, okay? I've got the best sleeping bag in the world. I've got a mini fridge in my tent. I've got a mat that's incredible.
This sounds accurate to you camping.
Correct. This is my setup.
This is his Glastonbury setup.
I've got the amazing mattress. I've got all the mod cons inside this tent, but my tent is rusty and it's got holes in the roof. So it doesn't matter how good my stuff inside the tent is. It's the holes in the roof that are the problem. And the holes in the roof are the upper echelons of Manchester United. I don't think any coach makes a difference. It's the philosophy from the very top, it is the structures from the very top that separates Man United from other big teams. They don't have the same level of competency in that. They don't have an overall vision. I've said it time and time on this podcast. Man United do not know what they are, and they don't know what they want to be. That is the problem. That is why there is holes in the roof of the tent. It doesn't matter how many shiny objects they put on the pitch or the coach they put on the pitch. I can't see anything changing unless they make wholesale changes at the very, very top.
Graham wants to talk, and I want to cede all of my time. I agreed upon this beforehand on Manchester United to Graham and Taylor because
we're old and we care about the generational stuff.
Exactly. But I do just want to ask, could we clip Ryan saying, I don't think any coach matters? Can we clip that and sort of put that out on whatever channels we have?
Specifically at that club.
That would be my thing. Graham, sorry, you were talking, but
actually,
I shoehorned you out of the way.
Joe, can I ask you a question for your specific area of interest in this team? I have long assumed that players are continuing to sign for Manchester United, similar to why they sign for other big clubs, which is the idea that their fortunes are down, but I might be the one that turns it around, and I could be the one that makes this formerly great club great again. There is also a developing narrative that Manchester United are now seen as the obvious place to go if you want a big paycheck. And basically, I know I'm going to get paid, so I'm going to take that money, I'm going to take that offer, and then we'll see what happens after that. Do you buy into that second idea more so than the first?
I think things can be two things, but I mean, we would be foolish and naive to ignore the financial side of it. That is in 90+% of cases why players go places. Players are not attached to the club by and large. They're attached to making a living, just like the rest of us are. So I don't think that is new, I suppose, is what I'm saying. I think that principle, Manchester United are what's the Parks and Rec quote? Flush with cash. They have.
I got run over by a Lexus.
They have lots of money, and players like money, like the rest of us too. So I mean, the one thing I'll say, and again, I'm breaking my contract that I agreed to upon before we started recording. The thing that doesn't get Manchester United better is them selling their good young players. And I suppose this is my desperate attempt to get us back to the transfer chat, because everything we've just said is basically how Ryan previewed Manchester United before we started the season, and he just did a different analogy to say the same thing, which is still relevant. But Ryan, we've done all this before. The news is just that it sounds like Amorim's going to get fired, and that's who knows what's going to happen there. But you don't get out of this malaise by dumping Kobe Mainoo and Garnacho out of the squad. Like, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that Amorim, and this is to Graham's point, ostracized those players, in particular Garnacho, who I think is the higher ceiling of the players. He plays a more valuable position. I think Mainoo is a very useful player. I don't know that he still has some deficiencies in his game when it comes to progressive passing and doing some of the possession stuff that I think you need to do if you're on a title-winning team. But Manchester United are not that right now. They need useful pieces, and you just cannot convince me that those two players not being either in the lineup or in the squad that are regularly in the lineup sorts of players, you cannot convince me that would not be more useful for Manchester United than whatever they're going to do with the money they're generating from those guys. You just can't.
And just to do a very quick recap on what the latest reporting has been, in case listeners haven't heard this around Kobe Mainoo. So The Athletic had an in-depth report on Wednesday, basically outlining how Kobe Mainoo is considering his options. And in fact, The Guardian went a step further. They said he actively wants to leave Manchester United now because he has been largely frozen out of the first-team picture by Ruben Amorim. There have been contract talks that have stalled. And Manchester United would apparently accept £45 million or less for Mainoo, which frankly is wild to me. That seems to be well below market value. And he has spoken to Bayern Munich and Chelsea and a couple other clubs as well. And the fact that these clubs are having these discussions and are interested tells you a lot about the esteem that he is held in. And the whole story is wild to me because when you watch Manchester United at the moment, I misjudged the rigidity that Ruben Amorim would have with this formation. I also misjudged coming into this season how much of an issue Manchester United's midfield is. I knew it was an issue, didn't realise it would be this much of an issue, and it feels like it's compromising the entire thing where they have strengthened their attack coming into this season. I do think Cunha and Mbeumo and potentially Sesko are an upgrade on what they had last season. But their midfield is such a mess. They're playing Bruno Fernandes as an 8. He's not suited to that role. Casemiro isn't the same player anymore. Ugarte is a bust. And they are crying out for an athletic two-way midfielder. And Mainoo, in terms of his profile anyway, is that player. Now, I'm not trying to say Mainoo solves all those problems, and I do rate Mainoo really highly, but he's still only 20 years old. He's developing. There are deficiencies in his game. It just seems like Ruben Amorim, has never really understood him. He's played him everywhere apart from the position he has looked quality in for Manchester United in England. Keep in mind, this is a player who started a Euros final for England last year. And in my opinion, Man Utd would be mortgaging their future by selling Mainoo, especially for such a low fee. At least with Garnacho, he's a high potential player as well. As a character and a personality, he seems to be quite difficult. And so I can buy the argument that if Amorim is trying to get buy-in from the squad and maybe he's a problematic figure, then okay, you bank the 60 million. But I don't understand the Kobe Mainoo one.
The thing is, like, even if Amorim walks, even if he's sacked, like, I think they're maybe too far down the road. Like, I don't love that I'm making a comparison to the Salem witch trials, but if, like, Joe has been accusing Graham of being a witch, and I fully back Joe of, like, yeah, Joe's totally right. Joe wouldn't just accuse these things, and now Graham is on the outs. Graham is on the outside of civilization. He's been ostracized and thrown out, and then Joe's like, never mind, I was wrong. I'm out of here. Anyway, I don't know if I can be like, well, Graham, come on back. My bad. Like, they've so very clearly backed Amorim at the expense of Kobe Mainoo. Have been okay with basically him being on the bench, him sort of not developing further, not renewing his contract. Admittedly, I think he wanted a massive increase in his wage, and there was some concern that maybe he hadn't justified the wage he was looking for. I think he was on $20,000 a week. I think he wanted a 10 times increase, so $200,000 a week would be a lot. But also what they've paid a lot of other players, including Casemiro, on $350,000 a week. So if you want to cry poverty, I'm not sure about that one. But at this point, it seems like even if Amorim goes, I don't know how you go back to Mainoo, go back to Garnacho and say, like, never mind, our bad, that was all him. That was the bad man, and he's gone now. Please play for us some more. It just seems like you've kind of put yourself in this position, and now you have to kind of let the chips fall as they're going to.
The Bomb Squad nickname was actually a good thing. We didn't mean it in a bad way at all.
Yeah, right? You guys are the bomb. We're bringing back 90s slang. Yeah. Graham, I wanted to ask one thing, because I think you are correct that Bruno isn't a number 8. Like, I think that's pretty clear at this point. For people who are, like, not familiar with the number equaling position, like, what is an ideal number 8 for Manchester United? Why can't Bruno do that?
Well, an ideal number 8 for Manchester United is someone who can lend their hand to all things, right? So someone who can rhythm build in the centre of the pitch. It's someone who can get around, has mobility, offer a bit of box-to-box quality, has defensive instincts as well against the ball. Bruno Fernandes is an excellent creator. He's a goal threat, but all the other stuff I think he's pretty weak at. And it comes back round to, well, if Manchester United are fully in on Ruben Amorim, why didn't they sell Bruno Fernandes to Saudi Arabia earlier in the window, pocketed that 100 million, go and get Carlos Baliba, who isn't a better player than Bruno Fernandes, but is better at what Manchester United need that player in that role to do. So it's confusing that he's being played there.
I had the same thought. The situation is so bad that it now kind of makes you go back and look at like things as I understood them in the past that have now changed. And I now wonder if Manchester United were very much like, no, we would hate if you went to Saudi Arabia, Bruno. Please don't do that. Please don't go. And then he didn't. And they're like, oh, we were counting on that money and that open midfield spot to be able to play other people there. So that he is there, I think maybe does create some problems that I didn't foresee coming. But it does seem like Mainoo, after going through a sustained period of starting for Manchester United last year, then becomes a squad player, a bench player, a role player when they're trying to kind of rest and rotate for Europa League games. And a lot of that, I think Amorim talked about how he needed to increase, like basically his speed of play and his decision making. That he wasn't kind of fast enough on the ball and in playing the ball. Mainoo has a little bit of an injury and comes back last season by all accounts like bulkier, bigger, has put on more muscle. But does that make him faster and quicker on the turn, quicker to play? Doesn't seem like it did. So there are like identified aspects of his game that kept him out of the lineup. It just feels like those are issues that could have been worked on if maybe there weren't such a rigid manager who wanted very specific things, and if you're not going to do them, out you go.
Graham, real quick before we break, just to wrap up on the transfers at Man United, a few questions for you. With Mainoo, where would he go if he goes? Any update on Garnacho and also the goalkeeper position? We're seeing San Lamen, the Belgian goalkeeper from Royal Antwerp. Apologies if I've butchered his pronunciation there. But a few comings and goings perhaps in the next few days.
I'm glad you got to that pronunciation before me because I've never said it out loud. I'll run through those three things very quickly. Where could Mainoo go? I think Chelsea's interest is maybe the longest standing interest, and we know what their model is. So if there's a highly rated, high potential youngster available for £45 million or less, it seems like they would be interested in that, as they are with Alejandro Garnacho and have been for a long time. So it was widely reported by Fabrizio Romano and others on Wednesday that talks are advancing over that sale. According to The Guardian, that fee is going to be between 35 million and 40 million, which again seems way below market value for a player of his potential who has 3 years left on his contract. As I said earlier, I am more receptive to Man United selling Garnacho because it does feel like maybe he was part of the cleansing of that dressing room. But if Amorim is on the way out, as it kind of seems like he is now, it seems like that spiral has started. Is it a wise idea to sell an academy player of such value to a direct rival?
No.
At this moment in time, seems not. It is certainly a good idea for Manchester United to get a new goalkeeper in. I have largely, or at times, I've defended Andre Onana. I can't do that anymore.
No?
He has cost
Sure?
Manchester United goals on a
right.
game-to-game basis. Cost them 2 goals last night against Grimsby. And the reporting is that they are interested in what pronunciation did you give it, Ryan?
I said Lamen, I don't know.
Sen Lamen, Belgian
Sen
goalkeeper,
Lamen.
23-year-old, plays for Royal Antwerp. And this one's bubbled away for a while. Apparently Antwerp wanted €20 million for him earlier in the window. Now they're asking 25 to 30 because it's later in the window. Classic Manchester United stuff, that. But he is apparently, look, I've not watched them, or at least maybe I have by accident, not deliberately.
I need the end of the sentence to be is actually a centre back. like that feels on brand for
well,
Manchester United as well.
I don't know if this will make you feel much better, Taylor, but apparently he is in the mould of a modern ball playing goalkeeper who, from what I have seen reported, is prone to flapping at a corner. So completely different to what they already have, but it seems like he might be arriving because he's already been left out of the Antwerp squad for a couple matches.
Okay. Maybe it's Le Mans, like the race. I don't know. We'll get there one day. Let's take a quick break, shall we? When we come back, we'll talk about Chelsea's more potential Chelsea comings and goings. Nicholas Jackson, maybe going to Bayern Munich, and much more. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to our transfer roundup. Let's go to Stamford Bridge, shall we? Graham, there's reporting that Chelsea are in for Fermin Lopez from Barcelona. My question, do Chelsea need a Fermin Lopez or anyone of that kind of calibre for that question?
I think most teams need a Fermin Lopez because I think he's absolute quality.
Okay.
Chelsea obviously have a stacked squad at the moment, and it feels like there's going to have to be a lot of outgoings between now and the end of the window, but more on that later. So the Fermin Lopez story was reported by David Ornstein on Wednesday, that Chelsea are weighing up a move for Fermin Lopez. At the moment, Ornstein says there's no contact between the clubs, there's no offer. So this is at early stages, which might mean it doesn't happen with just a few days of the window left. But Chelsea are in contact with Fermin Lopez and his representatives. And Chelsea, to be fair to them, I know it seems a little bit scattergun at times, their approach. They have been fairly consistent in their desire for a new attacking midfielder all the way through the summer, because, of course, Xavi Simons has been a target. He, at the moment, seems to be doing a Peter Odemwingie. He is in London right now. He's travelled to London, despite the fact that both Chelsea and Spurs, who are interested, there doesn't seem to be a deal on the table for him, so that's going to be interesting. But yeah, Chelsea have been in the market for a new attacking midfielder all summer. I like Fermin Lopez a lot. I think he's got all the technical ability you would expect of a Barca player. He's good in tight spaces. He's got a good first touch. He is. He's just an excellent all-round attacking midfielder. He gets into good shooting positions, makes runs into the box. He's got a good degree of creativity as well. I'm a big fan, and I think he would be an excellent signing for Chelsea. He'd be right up there as one of their signings of the summer.
Yeah, he'd crush for them. The thing I don't understand totally is if it's one of Fermin Lopez and Xavi Simons, or if it's both of them. I know that Chelsea are in a position now where, according to reports, they're going to have to move players out before they move players in. But those things are in the works with Christopher Nkunku now heading to AC Milan and Nicholas Jackson as well to Bayern Munich. So there are bodies moving out, which would allow them to move some bodies in. It would seem unnecessary, to use a Ryan Bailey term, to bring in both Simons and Fermin Lopez. But man, either way, I'm big fans of both of those players. Fermin Lopez is probably higher up on my list, although I would say he has... he maybe is a slightly different player from Xavi Simons, who is able to do a little bit more in the final third more consistently, where Lopez played more in this three-man midfield where he does range back a little bit deeper at times. They're slightly different players, but Lopez, I mean, we've seen it with Barcelona. He's amazing. Like, you're not going to pluck Pedri out of that Barcelona midfield. If you're looking for another player to pluck in those more advanced areas, it's Fermin Lopez for me. I mean, Gavi is another name that has played obviously a lot for Barcelona and for Spain, but of the players that actually bring you elite level play on the ball, Gavi is the heat-seeking missile in that group. Like, he's the destroyer. He's not the classic Spanish profile of playing passes around you in a phone booth. It is Lopez and Pedri who do most of that stuff, and Lopez is the gettable one. He would be real high on my list of desirable targets if I'm any club on the planet, basically.
If Chelsea pull this off, it's absolutely ruthless, because in an ideal world, Barcelona wouldn't want to sell Fermin Lopez, but they are not in an ideal world and haven't been for a number of seasons, and as always, they need money. So they haven't signed off on their accounts for the new league season yet. What's new? The Camp Nou still hasn't got a safety certificate, which means they might have to postpone more home games or play at Montjuic again, which is costing them a lot of money to do that. So selling Fermin might be one of those necessary levers that Barca have to pull, and Chelsea look like they're the club that might benefit from that.
A lot of issues facing Barcelona, but eventually they'll just get away with it and everything will be fine, is how I'm picturing that.
I didn't get to respond to your Glazers point, Ryan, which I don't necessarily disagree with. Actually, I agree with it on a macro point. But Barcelona are the counter to that. Like, two of the last three league titles in Spain. Yeah, they're very, very good, and they're an absolute shambles off the pitch.
Man United are Frank Grimes, and Barcelona are Homer Simpson.
Man United at least have a roof to leak. Barcelona don't even have a pitch.
Yeah, they got to pull a lever to get a safety certificate. Is
that Jim Ratcliffe? Like, in the board meeting, is that an argument he's making?
Yeah.
Like, things aren't all bad.
Could be worse.
On Chelsea, some potential outgoings. We're hearing Nicholas Jackson maybe on loan to Bayern Munich. And Christopher Nkunku has had the Fabrizio Romano here we go treatment in the direction of Milan before we started recording as well.
Yeah, there's a lot happening with outgoings at Chelsea, so it's all very fluid. This could be out of date by the time listeners listen to this. As proven by the fact that when I did the running order for this episode yesterday, it seemed a loan to Aston Villa was maybe the most feasible destination for Christopher Nkunku. And now, as you say, Ryan, he is basically all but an AC Milan player now. I saw David Ornstein reporting a fee of 42 million euros for him with some add-ons. I think that's reasonable value for AC Milan. I mean, there's clearly a player in there with Christopher Nkunku. He's one of the Chelsea scattergun signings that they almost forgot about him, right? They signed him in January. He wasn't going to arrive until the summer, and then there was just no plan for him when he came into that team. So I want to see him. He's a fun player. I want to see him back to his best. And talking of fun players, Nicholas Jackson, I'd like to see him play regular soccer this season as well. Don't know if he would do that at Bayern Munich, to be honest. It felt like maybe Aston Villa would be a better fit. They've also been linked with with him. I don't know if Aston Villa have just rocked up to Stamford Bridge and gone, show us what you've got between Hincapie and Nicholas Jackson. But yeah, those are the two rumours that are doing the rounds at the moment.
I do like... Oh, go ahead, Taylor. Okay, I do like the Jackson move for Bayern Munich. The loan, it sounds like, with an obligation to buy. So they would be bringing Jackson for a longer-term sort of deal. I like that move for Bayern because as Harry Kane continues to progress throughout his career, you are thinking a bit about succession planning. You know, all these clubs are thinking about that. They should be thinking about that. And I think there's a player in Nicholas Jackson as well. I mean, I've been the staunchest proponent of him amongst the four of us. So, I think we all probably see some value in his game.
Yeah.
He is a really nicely well-rounded striker who was in a chaotic system at Chelsea a little bit at times, and also who didn't finish along with his underlying numbers. So you would imagine that some of those things balance out over time. And you're looking at a player who can be a really useful striker for a really good team. And I think Bayern Munich fit that, where you don't need to put massive expectations on him right off the jump. But if he is performing well, there are creative ways to give him more minutes between now and whenever the Harry Kane era is going to be over for Bayern. This is probably a little early on the succession planning front in the grand scheme of things, but I think there is a real world in which Nicholas Jackson is good enough to be a contributing player to a Bayern team. And this is like a pretty low-risk way to kick that off.
Where I disagree, Joe, is I just want to see him play 30 games in a season, like start 30
that probably
games
won't
in a
happen
season for anyone,
Yeah.
and that doesn't feel like it's going to happen
no way.
at Bayern Munich this season.
But that's like less Bayern's concern and more Nicholas Jackson's concern, obviously.
Yeah.
And if he's down to go and get paid what he's going to get paid and all that, then more power to him.
One other little thing on that one, I saw some reporting that Chelsea are basically like maybe leaving the phone off the hook for now, or they're unable to find paperwork because they're waiting to see what happens with Alexander Isak. And if he stays with Newcastle, do Liverpool then need like a striker option? Could Jackson go there? And if Isak does go, do Newcastle want to go for Alexander or for Nicholas Jackson? I think the idea would be that either one of those clubs is going to be able to spend a little bit more than Bayern Munich. So I wonder if Chelsea will like hold off for just a little bit and see how that sorts out, or if they will go for the potentially more proven, known option of Bayern Munich. I think any one of those probably is a better situation for Nicholas Jackson than Chelsea. I'm not sure how much time he would actually get at Liverpool, but it does feel like Bayern and Newcastle would be the most okay places to land.
Wonderful stuff. All right, one more quick break. When we come back, a few more transfer deals to look at, including some interesting situations for Tottenham and Arsenal. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to our transfer roundup. Let's take ourselves to North London, shall we? Tottenham started the season very well indeed. But obviously, they've got the James Maddison injury to get through over the next few months, Graham. What are we thinking about how they might fill that void, if indeed they do, in the coming days?
Yeah, so it feels like Spurs will do a couple deals in the next few days. Fabrizio Romano was saying that they want a number 10 and a left winger, which makes sense. Obviously, James Maddison is out injured for the season. He's the number 10. Son Heung-min has just joined LAFC. He was the left winger, so they do need direct replacements for those players. Romano also says there's legitimate interest in Morgan Rogers. Now, I think Rogers would be an outstanding signing for Spurs. I was a big fan of his last season. I think he was one of the reasons Aston Villa were able to take that step forward last season, was his emergence. And if you look at some of his numbers, particularly his ball carrying to assist numbers, or ball carrying to like productivity numbers, that's what I was looking at with Morgan Gibbs-White, the way that Nottingham Forest played Nuno ball, and I was trying to translate that into Frank ball, and I thought that was one of the things that made him a good fit for Tottenham. And I think similarly with Morgan Rogers, he's a very good dribbler, likes to carry the ball, creative in and around the box, so I think he'd be a great fit for a Thomas Frank team. At the same time, I'd be shocked if Villa sold him this late in the window, and that price would surely be upwards of around, I mean, I'm plucking this number at thin air, I haven't seen any reporting, but surely would be about around the 80 million mark in this market. So yeah, I'm doubtful that they'll be able to pull that one off, but there's a lot of names swirling around Spurs at the moment. So as we mentioned last week, they've also been linked with Akliouche at Monaco. The Xavi Simons interest has ramped up in the last couple of days. He's in London today, apparently. Savinho is another target who they had, I think, one bid. They made a bid and it was rejected. I think Man City potentially want them to come back to the table. Maybe Rodrigo as well, although that seems a little bit ambitious at this time of the window. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what direction Spurs head in between now and Monday.
I have images of Xavi Simons and Fermin Lopez just walking around the streets of London with for sale signs around their necks. I'm sure it's a bit more subtle than that, but it is kind of.
Find a buyer.
I mean, it's the ultimate come and get me play, isn't it? Going to a different city to try and get a new deal.
I mean, if Xavi Simons isn't in the car with the window down, doing the whole Peter Odobwenge routine. Missed opportunity, frankly.
Wow, good stuff. Joe, what's your thoughts on Tottenham? Obviously had a very good start to the season. Do you feel like there is a strong need to strengthen in these ways?
Yes, ultimately. I mean, they have done very well, as we said multiple times, but I do think they need more high-end quality, right? If this team really wants to take a step forward, and obviously they do, and sustain their position high up the table, they need more attacking pieces. I don't think they can sustain this, missing Maddison and Son and the production that those two guys added last year. And I think Spurs fans should be really encouraged by the list of names that have been reported that Tottenham are interested in, right? I mean, we've talked about a lot of these guys already this summer across multiple different clubs, and interest from Chelsea, which, I mean, say what you want about Chelsea and the number of signings they've made, they've hit on a lot of players. Like when you are in for some of these same players, that is a good sign. And same with Eze, right? You see Tottenham identifying really effective players. Not that it takes a ton of juice to do that at this level where players are really well known and you got lots of data on them. But I think Spurs fans should be really, really excited, not just about what you're seeing on the field already, but about the possibility of adding a couple of the names that we've mentioned to this team. Man, things start to look really fun at a certain point under Thomas Frank, and I think we're right on the cusp of that.
Fun indeed. Graham, what's happening at Arsenal? I think we've seen some reporting about Leverkusen's Pierre Hincapie potentially coming over. Leverkusen definitely have some players left. Like they have an 11, right? Still, because it seems like they've sold the kitchen sink this summer.
Seems like they've got some bills to pay this summer with the number of checks that they're cashing in. Yeah, Malik Tillman, do it all on yourself, son. See how you get on this season. Yeah, Piero Hincapie, which is just a great name to say, isn't it? It's a fun one to say, Hincapie.
Ecuadorian, right? I think he is.
He's Ecuadorian, yeah. He's very good. I'm a fan. Obviously, a key figure of that Leverkusen team that won the Bundesliga title a couple of seasons ago. And David Ornstein reported on Monday that Arsenal have moved for him because they feared Spurs might beat them to the punch. Apparently, Spurs had made a loan offer with an obligation to buy or an option to buy. Apparently, Hincapie has a release clause of €60 million at Leverkusen. So Arsenal are still drinking Spurs' milkshake in this transfer market. And basically, Arsenal want him in because they want to build out the left side of their defence in the same way that they have with the right side. They have some depth on the right side with Ben White being able to moonlight at centre back. Or actually, is he moonlighting at right back? I'm confused on Ben White these days.
He's moonlighting.
Anyway,
he's moonlighting
somewhere.
Yeah.
On the left side, Jacob Kivior is off to Porto. I think that deal's going to be completed in the next 24 hours. I was reading he's travelling today. So Hincapie would be a replacement for him, and I think a pretty big upgrade on Jacob Kivior, who was always serviceable and would do a job, but I think Hincapie has the potential to be outstanding.
Okay. And something I was kind of hinting at the start of the show, any big surprises, maybe some major deals that might go through. Alexander Isak, still out there, right? So what's happening with Newcastle? Maybe we're seeing some reporting about Strand Larsen potentially coming in. And what's happening specifically with Isak? I'm seeing some Chelsea rumours at the moment and some maybe that he's been put on a plane to Saudi Arabia. Where does this one finish up, do we think?
Do we think that is him and his agents getting a little bit desperate, that if that Liverpool move isn't going to materialise, he's kind of been touted around anyone that could potentially make a move? That's my read.
Is he another guy walking around London at the moment? Is he?
Yeah, he's also got
the others.
Yeah, he's maybe he should be doing that in Liverpool rather than London, but maybe he's doing that in Saudi Arabia now. Yeah, I couldn't call the Isak one, to be honest. Seems like he's burned a lot of bridges. There was some reporting after Monday's game, which was outstanding, one of the games of 2025 so far, that some talks with Jamie Ruben and some of the decision makers and owners at Newcastle had started. So potentially that's the process of rolling something back. But it seems like there's going to have to be a lot of rolling back for him to be back in that Newcastle team at any time soon. But Newcastle, they clearly listened to my preview of Wolves, in which I said Jurgen Strand Larsen is seriously underrated. I also said I wasn't too worried about Wolves getting relegated, and I might change my mind on that now. So don't listen to that preview too closely. But yeah, Newcastle, they want Strand Larsen. They've had a couple of bids rejected. The last one was for £55 million, which is a lot. As much as I rate Strand Larsen and think he's a very able frontman at Premier League level, you're now getting into the realm of Eberechi Eze money. But this is the situation that Newcastle are in right now with the Isak saga. And even if Isak stays, they need a deputy centre forward because they don't have any other natural number 9 besides William Asula, who is very much a developmental player. So I do think there's a world where they sign Strand Larson and maybe convince Isak to come and play some soccer by like Halloween time.
There we go. Lots of pieces to move around still in the transfer puzzle. Taylor, it's okay. You know, the tent's they're gonna patch up those holes one day. Don't worry. It's gonna be okay.
Or they're just gonna, collapse upon themselves spectacularly like they already are, and that will be fun. I do take some heart in like the reversal of fortune at Everton. That's been a fun story. The new stadium, David Moyes returning, turning things around, Jack Grealish joining. Have we talked Tyler Dibbling since that became official?
Dibbling. It's official.
That's a big signing for them. One that I think they were hesitant to proceed with because of the amount involved and the amount of add-ons and bonuses and the like, but in the end they get the deal done. It solidifies that right wing, an area of desperate need for them. I think it makes them better, and they have already looked pretty strong to start the season, stronger than I thought they would, and I was pretty high on them to begin with. So it feels like more positive news for Everton, which is always positive, unless you're a Liverpool supporter.
Good caveat there. Excellent stuff. All right, unless there's any more deals we want to discuss in this episode, we'll park this one here. Taylor Rockwell, thank you very much indeed for your expertise as always, sir.
Amorim in? Out? I don't
know
even
about.
know. Yeah, that's the one.
Joe Lowery, thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, it is Amorim, not Amor out. I don't know how that changes things, but it's something to think about. Thanks, Ryan.
You can't spell im without Amorim. Yeah.
Yeah, it's in there somewhere. It's we're right there.
Something like that.
Graham Ruthven, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Ryan Bailey.
And listener, thank you the mostest for joining us on the feed. We'll be back on Friday with some listener questions. But for now, bye.